Welcome to Tritiyo Matra. Half a decade ago, on February 10, 1972, Japan officially recognized Bangladesh as a sovereign country. Since then, Japan has actively supported Bangladesh's development efforts. Just in 2020, Bangladesh received around 3.2 billion US dollar official development assistance from Japan. In today's show, we hope to discuss in depth the future of Bangladesh relation with Japan in light of the geopolitical shifts in power in the East and Bangladesh's road to graduation from the least developed countries LDCs. To discuss these pertinent issues, it is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed guest for today, the Ambassador of Japan to Bangladesh, Mr. Ito Naoki. Mr. Naoki previously worked as a Consulate General of Japan in Chicago, USA. He studied at two well-known top-class universities, the University of Tokyo and the University of Cambridge. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. আমি এখানে আসতে পেরে খুশি হয়েছি। এই সুন্দর অনুষ্ঠানে আমাকে আমন্ত্রণ করার জন্য চ্যানেল আইকে ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you. Mr. Ambassador, it has been more than 2 years since you joined your office in Bangladesh. So far, how is your experience in Bangladesh? What are your general thoughts about the nation of Bangladesh and her people? Have you found anything of particular interest in our nation?
Being ambassador of Japan to Bangladesh, I'm so honored and I feel privileged and I never get bored. So this is full of excitement. So I have been here for 2 years, 4 or 5 months, but it has been really a worthwhile journey for me. And this country is full of potential. Dhaka is the most dynamic capital in the world. Bangladesh is really vibrant economy and country. So, but this potential means that still Japan-Bangladesh partnership has a big potential for development. And your people are very, very hospitable people. And also you have a strong sense of affinity to Japan. So that is a real asset for us to develop our friendship and partnership toward the future.
And what are some of your most successful and challenging moments in the last 2 years in Bangladesh?
If I may say this success, then as you already introduced, you said 50 years of diplomatic relations. So we celebrated 50 years of partnership, friendship in style in February. So this was the very successful and most exciting moment for me. And also those 2 years have been unfortunately influenced by a corona pandemic. Nevertheless, I think we have been able to develop our cooperation even under corona pandemic. So this is a global crisis. It is natural that we should join hands together to deal with, cope with the situation. So we provided some of the assistance. And under the even difficult situation, I think your government, your ministries worked hard to improve investment climate, which was very important for Japanese companies to stay and to look for the future investment opportunities.
And what is the general perspective held by the people of Japan regarding Bangladesh from your point of view?
I think the Japanese people looking at Bangladesh as the most promising country and most vibrant, dynamic country in Asia. So, but at the same time, still there is a perception of, say, poverty and flood damage remaining in Japan. So I think it's really important for us to build a new image of Bangladesh. But among those private companies, prospective investors, now they are looking at Bangladesh as the new frontier of investment in Asia. I was posted to New Delhi about 10 years ago. At that time, the Japanese companies, particularly those who are sent by headquarters to Delhi, so they are really determined to do great business to make profits in India. So I have a feeling that now here in Bangladesh, we are having the same mindset of private companies from Japan.
Mr. Naoki, Japan was one of the very few countries that extended a helping hand for reconstructing war-torn Bangladesh during the post-independence era. Japan has generously donated through official development assistance ODA to Bangladesh since 1972 and became Bangladesh's single largest bilateral donor. What convinced the Japanese government to extend a supporting hand to a war-torn country? What did Japan see in Bangladesh at that time?
Bangladesh became independent in 1971, but 26 years before, Japan was a war-torn country. So in 1945.
The same feelings.
So we had the same feeling towards the situation of Bangladesh then. And also we are aware of this devastating damage caused by flood in 1970. So there was a very strong sympathy towards the situation in Bangladesh. The cause of Bangladesh, of independence, was very much supported by people in Bangladesh. You know, at that time, world was, say, years of liberation movement and so forth. Late 60s, early 70s, Bangladesh independence was really, coincided with that period of time in the world. So very well-known Japanese film director, Nagisa Oshima, came here twice, 71, 72, and he made excellent documentary on Bangabandhu titled Father of the Nation, Bangabandhu. That really demonstrates the high level of interest shared by Japanese people on the independence and this nation building of Bangladesh.
Almost 6 years have passed since the tragic terrorist attack in Dhaka. It was an incident that we can never forget. In a message you said, I quote, "I renewed my determination to work harder for the development of Bangladesh and strengthen bilateral relations without letting the incident fade away," unquote. Could you elaborate further on that statement, Mr. Rito?
This holy artisan attack was very tragic and sad incident. So July 1st, 2016, we should never forget what happened on that date. So the 7 Japanese were killed by this attack. They are engaged with this survey mission of JICA. They are the JICA consultants. So and the other nationals, Bangladesh national, Italian national, American national, Indian national, also victimized by this terrorist attack. Yeah. We should not repeat this sort of heinous crime incident in this country or in the world. But what I wanted to stress was that they are engaged with the development work of this country, and they are victimized because of terrorist attack. But we should really carry through the willingness and intention of those who are killed by a terrorist attack for the purpose of development of Bangladesh. They are actually engaged with the survey mission of Line 1 of Dhaka Metro. So most likely later this year, we will start the bidding process of Line 1 of Dhaka Metro. So after 6 years, we have come thus far. So it's really important for us to implement Dhaka Metro project, particularly Line 1 project, steadily but surely for the benefit of citizens of Dhaka. But beyond that, I think we would be able to, say, expand our cooperation. Even in the area of prevention of terrorism, Japan and Bangladesh can cooperate towards the future.
That's great and quite impressive. Mr. Ambassador, in the last fiscal year, Japan has emerged as Bangladesh's largest lender in terms of aid disbursement, overtaking the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank. According to Economic Relations Division, Japan, being Bangladesh's biggest bilateral donor, disbursed US $714.44 million worth of aid in the July-November period of the fiscal year 2021, almost double the amount delivered by the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank combined. Now that Bangladesh is graduating from LDC, will we see a change in Japan's policy of aid disbursement to Bangladesh?
You know, Bangladesh has been growing. will be growing. So without doubt, Bangladesh will be the fastest growing economy in Asia in this decade. So which means that there will be an increasing demand for infrastructure. Japan stands ready to provide a quality infrastructure cooperation. I think the turning point was 2014 when two prime ministers, Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and then Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, exchanged their visits the same year. So they came up with this initiative of Big B, Bay of Bengal Industrial Growth Belt Initiative. So from then, I think we focused more on the cooperation of big infrastructure. So I think this trend has been continuing. So yes, last fiscal year, Bangladesh became the largest recipient of Japanese ODA. And my hope is that if not number one, continuously, but top three recipient of Japanese ODA. I think that is a position Bangladesh is going to hold for the future. And 2026, you are going to graduate from the LDC status, and beyond, you are going to realize this vision 2041. So we are really looking forward to continue to stand by Bangladesh in its development journey.
Is there any special plan from Japan's government to help Bangladesh recover the losses from the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly in the economic and health sector?
Japan has provided the vaccine for corona pandemic. In total, 4.5 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine was given from Japanese people to the people of Bangladesh, which have been very much effectively utilized for vaccination of the people of Bangladesh. And on top of that, for the first time, Japan decided to provide budget support for Bangladesh. So in year 2020, we provided 35 billion yen, and following year, 40 billion yen. But for the first time, we provided budget support, knowing that it's a very important project, financing into the economy. So we will continue this kind of cooperation if necessary, because as I said, this is a global crisis. Very important for us to join hands to cope with the situation and contain the pandemic, and to see the trajectory for recovery from this difficult time.
Mr. Ambassador, Japan has been involved in economic development in Bangladesh for a very long time and has put her sight on Bangladesh as a part of the free and open Indo-Pacific strategy, as you have mentioned earlier. What is the ultimate goal for Japan with the Big B initiative?
Japan has been promoting this free and open Indo-Pacific. This is a vision for peace, stability, and prosperity of the entire region, Indo-Pacific. Of course, Bangladesh and the Bay of Bengal are included in this Indo-Pacific region. So I think important thing is through development, Bangladesh will be more peaceful and more stable and more prosperous. I know that Japan and Bangladesh share values like the market economy or free trade, freedom of navigation, rule-based international system, and rule-based international order, international law. So these are very important aspects when we pursue this free and open Indo-Pacific. And to that end, we're also ready to provide the capacity building support, human resources development. But Big B is also part of the practical cooperation Japan is going to provide for the purpose of realizing free and open Indo-Pacific, this vision. So I think a priority there is Bangladesh will develop further and achieve stability, prosperity, peace. And then Bangladesh will be also able to have a positive impact on the entire region. You look at this Big B initiative, you look at the Matawari Deep Sea Port project, which will provide enhanced connectivity domestically as well as regionally. And I'm sure that that will lead to the stability and prosperity development of the entire region, because Bangladesh connects South Asia, ASEAN, and East Asia. Bangladesh has a very, very important strategic location here.
So, if the potential of the Big B project became a reality, what could be the role of Bangladesh in the context of South Asia?
You know, the March last year, Bangladesh had these twin celebrations. The birth centenary of father of nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, as well as 50 years of independence. For those 10 days of twin celebration, Dhaka was the center of regional diplomacy. It was Bangladesh, which really initiated many regional initiatives and cooperation, including enhancing connectivity in the region. I'm really hoping that Bangladesh will excel in this role in the region for development and prosperity. And I'm sure that Big B will play a very, very important role on that score. And Bangladesh is part of BIMSTEC, but once Big B is going to be successful, then Bangladesh can take a very strong initiative in the framework of BIMSTEC, because the headquarters of BIMSTEC are located here in Bangladesh. So the Bangladesh's, I think, stature will beyond the region, just South Asia, but across Asia, from South Asia to ASEAN to East Asia. I think that is the future of Bangladesh. Through the success of Big B, this Dhaka Chittagong industrial corridor with the creation of Matavali deep sea port, I think Big B can be a real game changer in terms of the economic prosperity as well as the political role Bangladesh can play in the region.
Ambassador, in Asia, Bangladesh's largest export destination is Japan. Bangladesh's export to Japan have almost doubled in the last decades. But Bangladesh still has untapped trade potential. Currently, exports mainly comprise ready-made garments and leather goods. You once stated in an interview that pharmaceuticals, agricultural and fishery products, and the food industry have high potential in providing exports to Japan. What needs to be done to facilitate the export of these commodities as well? So
Bangladesh has been exporting to Japan more than $1 billion US dollars annually. And this fiscal year, we have seen increasing figures. So probably by the end of this fiscal year, you will see the growth of 10% or 50% of export to Bangladesh compared to last fiscal year. So in spite of Corona pandemic, I think our trade has been expanding to satisfaction. I think first and foremost, those strong industry needs to thrive further. So RMG as well as leather industry, those two sectors will continue to be the mainstay of Bangladesh export. So I hope that those two industries will cope with the situation and ahead of the curve of technological innovation, so that Bangladesh can continue to export the large portion in terms of export to Japan. But at the same time, as you pointed out, the diversification is very important. And to that end, this potential of Bangladesh export industry beyond RMG and leather export, leather industry needs to be better known for the importers and exporters in Japan. So your roadshow may be very, very important. Also, I want to point out is the improvement of investment climate here. Ease of doing business needs to be better. So I know I have seen some of the development progress even during Corona pandemic, but still there are some issues and challenges like customs clearance, taxation issue, regulation on remittance, telegraphic transfer. But those challenges and issues needs to be addressed and resolved. And all in all, partnership between Bangladesh companies and Japanese companies are very, very important.
Do you think it is likely for Japan and Bangladesh to form Free trade agreement?
Free trade agreement is very important for Bangladesh to cope with post-LDC situation, not necessarily with Japan, but with other major trading partners. So I think in the context of bilateral Japan-Bangladesh, if we are to form FTA, that will be beneficial to expand further trade and investment between the two countries. I very much hope that we'll be able to start joint study, the feasibility study on a free trade agreement between the two countries. The Ministry of Commerce here has already requested to the Japanese side. Now, the Tokyo has been, examining this very carefully, but I'm sure that in the not too distant future, we'll be able to start this joint study of FTA, because bilateral FTA between our two countries will be so beneficial for both sides, private sectors, that could bring about win-win business economic partnership of the two countries.
Ambassador Naoki, last year in a virtual dialogue on Bangladesh-Japan relations, you identified 5 challenges ahead that Bangladesh and Japan need to address together to elevate the solid partnership to a higher level with multifaceted greater cooperation. The 5 challenges are, as you have mentioned, to develop a Bangladesh-Japan strategic partnership, make Bangladesh more attractive for business, expand people-to-people exchange, enhance cooperation with Bangladesh as a partner to realize free and open Indo-Pacific, and strengthen efforts to increase Bangladesh's stature in the region and beyond. Would you share with with our audience how we can address and overcome those challenges?
I'm very optimistic about the possibility that we'll be able to overcome those challenges. So, I think Japan and Bangladesh are going to form strategic partnership. Now the stature of Bangladesh in the region is being enhanced. That will, I think, pave the way for our strategic partnership. So in January, first month of this 50th anniversary of a partnership, 2 of the Japanese self-defense naval maritime self-defense forces ships, 2 ships came to port at Chittagong. So that was a wonderful curtain raiser for 50 years. And they did the joint exercise with Bangladesh Navy. So already that level of cooperation had started between the two countries. And I expect that the Bangladesh Navy will be able to send their ships to Japan for the first time later this year. So I think year by year, we can really increase this width of cooperation so that we can really move into a strategic partnership. And the second issue was this business aspect. I touched upon earlier. I think it's really important for us to expand trade and investment both ways for mutual benefit. But at the moment, I think investment climate needs to improve further. I think that's a very, very important thing, and we really need to keep pushing this agenda. I know that our interlocutors are fully aware of the importance of improving the business climate here. But at the same time, you may need to take a rather cautious, gradual approach in light of the economic situation here, particularly under pandemic. But now, Bangladesh has almost contained the pandemic right now. So I think this year, it's a really wonderful period that we can promote our investment further. And you really need to encourage Japanese prospects, investors make investment here through the improvement of invest climate, business environment. Later in the year, in December, the new special economic zone will be ready in Arai Hajal. That is called Bangladesh Special Economic Zone, but developed by Japanese company with JICA's Yemlong Corporation. So this is going to provide the first-class international standard facilities and infrastructure as special economic zone. And this special economic zone will house not only Japanese but also international investors. I think this will be a great stepping stone to expand our trade and investment opportunities. And people-to-people contact, the younger generation, Bangladesh, are really keen to show more interest on Japan, Japanese culture, language, food, including animation, like a pop culture. So I think we have been successfully conducting some of the events to mark our 50 years, like kimono, traveling exhibition, Bongo Bondu's visit, the photo exhibition, film showing, anime showing. So I'm really confident that the younger generation of Bangladesh will show more interest on Japan, Japanese language and culture. And fourth one is free and open in the Pacific. I think I have stated this earlier, but success of Big B is a very, very important element with which Bangladesh will be a strong partner of pursuing this vision of free and open Indo-Pacific. And if Bangladesh is able to do that, I'm sure that Bangladesh will be able to play even a larger, stronger role in the region.
Mr. Naoki, there have been a lot of developments in the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea, including a visible rise in militarization, particularly in the South China Sea. We can see this clearly in the formation of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue and AUKUS. Do you believe these developments will have a spillover effect on the littoral nations of the Bay of Bengal, particularly Bangladesh?
This Quad dialogue is not necessarily focusing on security aspect. Quad is to advance cooperation among 4 countries, as well as to seek this realization of vision of free and open Indo-Pacific. So that is a vision of peace, prosperity, and stability. So with this Quad framework, we hope that many countries in the region will be able to pursue this vision of free and open Indo-Pacific. So 4 countries will provide practical cooperation to that end, starting from economic aid, quality infrastructure building, connectivity, even this cooperation on anti-terrorism or humanitarian assistance or disaster management, even to enhance the law enforcement capacity, maritime safety, security, and so forth. I think the cooperation is really a wide-ranging cooperation. So our hope is that the entire region will be governed by this rule-based international order and international system. I know that Bangladesh has been really abiding by international law. For example, when you did the demarcation of sea boundary with neighboring countries such as India and Myanmar, you actually resort to international framework. So in a very, very peaceful manner, you settled this maritime boundary with neighboring country. I think that is a practice and spirit we expect Bangladesh to continue. And I think Ukraine situation is very, very concerning now. Russia infringed upon independence and territorial integrity of Ukraine, so which is a violation of international law. And Russia changed the status quo by force unilaterally. And we do hope that hostilities should end as soon as possible. But the situation in Ukraine has implication over to our region in the Pacific. We should not allow a similar attempt to change the status quo unilaterally by force. If we can see any sign of such attempt, we should raise voices and we should show our concern so that in the future we will not allow any attempt to change the status quo unilaterally by force should not be allowed.
And as you know, the foreign policy of Bangladesh is very simple: friendship towards all, malice towards none. Do you think that the country needs to revisit its policy to play a role in the geopolitical power struggles in the Indian and Pacific Oceans?
No, I don't think I should go into details of this area. So this is a policy of Bangladesh.
Okay.
So this is something people and government of Bangladesh should decide. But Bangladesh abides by principles, such as not only this traditional principle, but also it's the respect and its observance of international law and rule-based international order. So, if I may, Bangladesh may be able to be more articulate in expressing their principled views and their ideas in relation to foreign policy.
Ambassador Naoki, what are the general perspectives of Japan regarding Myanmar, the now recognized Rohingya genocide and the ongoing refugee crisis? Do you believe it is possible to begin repatriating refugees in the next 5-10 years? What role can the international community and Japan play in facilitating repatriation?
I think it is possible to see repatriation.
Okay.
So
That's great.
in the near future, we should realize the repatriation of Rohingya refugees from Bangladesh to Myanmar, because that is the only long-term solution to this Rohingya refugee crisis. I was stationed in Yangon, Myanmar, about 20 years ago. So that is why I have been closely watching the development of the situation. But currently, it is not a very easy environment for us to see the start of repatriation. So I think now we really need to stress to this military side of Myanmar is that they should stop the violence and they should release those detained since February the 1st last year, including Aung San Suu Kyi. Also, they should restore democracy. Myanmar was in the process of democratization. So from military junta days to democratization. So we are really welcoming that change taking place in that country. So they should not stop the progress towards democratization. So we should really call for a military side of Myanmar to come back to the path of democracy. But as they go back to the path of democracy, so it's very, very important for us to stress the importance of early repatriation Rohingya refugees. I was on the Bhasanchar Island this week. So I think relocation from Cox's Bazar camps to Bhasanchar has been in place. So now almost 30,000 Rohingya refugees are on the island. So they are happy with this very solid infrastructure on the island. But at the same time, I think we really need to increase the services provided by government, international organization, as well as non-governmental organization, particularly in the areas like health, education, livelihood opportunities. But the repatriation may not start tomorrow. So in the meantime, we should really join hands and step up the efforts to provide assistance to Rohingya refugees.
Ambassador Dito, now that there is a more international recognition of Myanmar's acts of genocide against the Rohingya people, is there any possibility for the government of Japan to impose targeted sanctions against Myanmar's military junta?
So since coup d'etat happened on February the 1st last year, Japan reviewed its policy vis-a-vis Myanmar. And Japan decided not to provide new official development assistance to Myanmar. So at the moment, we are closely watching the development in the country.
Okay. And it is my understanding that Japan's FOIP initiative intends to create a regional peace and stability by promoting the rule of law and democratic values. What, in your opinion, is the state of democracy in Bangladesh currently? Does Japan have interest in observing the coming national elections?
I think the state of democracy here should be judged by people of Bangladesh. At the same time, I would say that political stability and democratic development of Bangladesh are very, very important for the inclusive and sustainable development of the country. You asked me about this question of election monitoring. The election is drawing near. Within 2 years, we are going to have next round of general elections. People are closely watching the development towards that. Japan has expectation that the election here will be conducted in open, fair, free and fair manner. Free and fair election in Bangladesh is very, very important. So we hope that next election will provide better opportunities of participation by voters of this country. So as for this election monitoring, before we sent election monitoring team. So if opportunity arises, I'm sure that Tokyo will consider that possibility.
Okay. Ambassador Naoki, both Japan and Bangladesh are similarly unique in their struggle with Mother Nature. Japan being the nation that has been the most affected by climate-related disasters, and Bangladesh being one of the most vulnerable nations to the effects of climate change. Do you see there is any scope for further bilateral collaboration between Bangladesh and Japan in mitigating and adapting to climate change?
I think it's important that Bangladesh will become more climate resilient economy. So to achieve this SDG target, to go beyond the LDC graduation, that's a very important challenge. So Japan stands ready to provide assistance for Bangladesh to cope with the situation. Currently, JICA is assisting the Ministry of Energy for formulating master plan on energy and power. So that is a master plan looking for another 20 years, 30 years, so that the economy will be turned into low carbon economy. And beyond that, we will provide cooperation on solar power generation, even this flood control, because as part of our cooperation to Delta Plan 2100.
And after the large infrastructure development projects are complete, what kind of relationship would the two nations have, in your opinion?
As Bangladesh will continue to develop until the year 2041, until the time you become developed nation, I think our cooperation on quality infrastructure will continue for some years to come, or at least 2 decades to come. So that's certainly our hope that Japan and Bangladesh can continue to cooperate.
And even beyond 2041.
Yes, yes. But once Bangladesh becomes a country which doesn't need our cooperation on big infrastructure projects, I'm sure that we are enjoying win-win partnership.
So, Ambassador, what do you think the next 15 years of Japan-Bangladesh relations will look like? What kind of plan does the Japan foreign mission in Bangladesh have to bolster cultural exchange and strengthen cultural ties with Bangladesh?
For those 15 years,
yeah.
It's really crucial for Bangladesh to become developed nation. So we will really focus on our effort for the success of Big B initiative, particularly the successful implementation of Matabali Deep Sea Port Development Project. Our idea is to make Matabali Island next Singapore, because the size of Matabali Island is just half of Singapore. So Matabali should be a real game changer for the economic development. For the next 15 years, I think we really need to focus on that. But in parallel to that, mutual understanding of peoples, particularly younger generations.
Yeah, people to people.
That's very, very important. So we should really encourage younger generation Bangladesh to know more about Japan, to study in Japan, to get more interest in Japanese culture, language, food, and so forth. And also, I hope Bangladesh people will enjoy trip to Japan now this middle class and affluent class of Bangladesh are increasing. I'm sure that they can afford to go to Japan to enjoy tourism in Japan. So that is also a very important aspect we can develop as Bangladesh moves forward. And my hope is that sometime this year, Biman Airways can resume its direct flight between Tokyo and Dhaka.
That would be great. And PEDP is a National Development Strategic Program for Primary Education in Bangladesh. Japan has been supporting PEDP in cooperation with other development partners since 2011 under the sector-wide approaches SWAPs. Last year, Japan signed an agreement to provide 500 million JPY to promote Bangladesh's primary education. Do you have any plan to extend Japan's collaboration to promote higher education and research in Bangladesh?
Education is a very, very important for Bangladesh to go further. So that is also a very important area for international donor community to provide the cooperation. Education, human resources development, those are the key for Bangladesh to exhibit its full potential for the economic development. So at the moment we have been focusing on primary education or nursing education, but I'm sure that there will be increasing needs for us to cooperate in the higher education sector, including IT sector and some other technological related sectors. So earlier during 80s, there was an example in which Japan provided assistance for even this setting up of a research institute on agriculture and agricultural university. So my hope and expectation is that we'll be able to collaborate with Bangladesh on higher education sector as well.
Mr. Ambassador, we are almost at the end of the program, and I understand that you are quite fond of songs from Bangladesh and can even sing a few Bangla songs yourself. Would it be possible for our audience to hear from you a Bangla song you like, Mr. Ambassador?
I'm not a really good singer. I'm a pathetic karaoke singer. But since you are kindly has requested, so if I may,
Please,
so I'll
sure.
just briefly sing Agner Poroshmoni.
Please.
Agner Poroshmoni Choa Prane Ejibon Punno Koro Ejibon Punno Koro Ejibon Punno Koro Ejibon Punno Koro Dohon Dane Agner Poroshmoni Choa Prane.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Incredibly very exciting. Thank you, Your Eminence, for the most fruitful discussion.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you so much.
The Ambassador's perspective and insight today have given us a clear idea of the kind of relationship we can hope to expect between our nations in the coming days. The people of Bangladesh are some of the most positive when it comes to Japan. Japanese art and culture, as Ambassador mentioned, have found a home in Bangladesh and are becoming more popular day by day. Japan and Bangladesh warm relationship is indeed an ideal development partnership model between developed and a developing nation. We hope that such warmth and friendship will be everlasting. Thank you all.